Oreo the Pug and Charlie the Steak, a love story. Once upon a time, in a bustling kitchen filled with tantalizing aromas, lived Oreo the Pug, a pudgy little pug with a heart as big as his appetite. With his soft fur like cream swirled in a mocha coffee and a pair of wide, innocent eyes that could melt the iciest hearts, Oreo was loved by all. But there was one thing Oreo loved above all else: steak. Every evening, as the sun dipped low and the house became filled with the comforting clinks of pots and pans, Oreo would sit near the stove, his nose twitching at the promise of something delicious. He would wait eagerly, anticipating that glorious moment when a juicy steak would appear on the table. One particular evening, something extraordinary happened. As Oreo trotted into the kitchen, tail wagging and tongue lolling, the most magnificent scent he had ever smelled filled the air. His nose led him to the counter where, under the glow of the kitchen light, lay the most handsome steak he had ever seen. This wasn't just any steak, it was Charlie the Steak. Charlie the Steak was no ordinary piece of meat. He was perfectly marbled, with a rich red hue and just the right amount of sizzle on his edges. There was something about the way he glistened under the light that made Oreo's little pug heart skip a beat. As Oreo gazed up at Charlie, something magical happened. For the first time, Oreo didn't see food. He saw a friend, a kindred spirit. "Hey there, little guy," said Charlie, his voice smooth and warm. "You've got quite the sparkle in your eyes." Oreo blinked, momentarily stunned. He didn't expect the steak to talk, let alone be so charming. I'm Oreo the Pug," he stammered, wagging his tail nervously. "I've never met a steak like you before." Charlie chuckled softly, the sizzle of his edges like a gentle laugh. "And I've never met a pug with such fine taste." From that moment on, something unexpected blossomed between the pug and the steak. Every evening, when the kitchen quieted down and the humans were done eating, Oreo would sneak into the kitchen to visit Charlie. They would talk for hours, sharing dreams and stories. Oreo would tell Charlie about his adventures in the park, his attempts to chase squirrels, and his secret stash of treats hidden under the couch. Charlie, in turn, would share tales of his life before the kitchen, his days in the butcher shop, the thrill of being chosen, and the honor of being prepared with such care. Over time, Oreo realized that his feelings for Charlie weren't just about the steak's savory perfection. He had fallen in love with the soul within. And though Charlie knew that one day his fate might be sealed by a fork and knife, he cherished every moment spent with Oreo, the little pug who had seen beyond his surface. One fateful night, the unthinkable happened. The humans decided that it was time to enjoy the prized steak. As they prepared to cook Charlie to perfection, Oreo felt his heart sink. He couldn't let it happen. With a burst of courage, Oreo leapt onto the counter and stood protectively over Charlie, barking and growling with all his might. The humans, confused but charmed by Oreo's unexpected behavior, laughed and decided to let the steak be. Charlie smiled, his edges still sizzling from the near cooking. "You saved me, Oreo." Oreo's eyes were filled with tears of joy. "I couldn't let them take you, Charlie. You're more than just a steak to me." From that day on, Charlie. The steak was no longer destined for the dinner table. He remained a permanent fixture in the kitchen, sitting on a fancy plate high on the counter where Oreo could visit him every day. Their love was an unusual one, but it was pure, and it defied all expectations. And so, in that cozy kitchen, under the warmth of the stove, Oreo the Pug and Charlie the Steak lived happily ever after, a dog and a steak bound by a love that was more than skin deep, right to the very core.